Good afternoon, everyone. By the time you get some food, we are going to start our conversation about everything we have learned in this conference. And for this purpose, we have invited, let's say, very varied panel here with practitioner, data scientists, educator, and managers. So with this, I want to introduce the panel, starting from Janet Dobbins. She is the Vice President of Strategic Partnership and Business Development for the Institute of Statistics Education, which is, if you know, statistic.com. So this is Janet, and she's very active in this area, data community, participating in mostly all nonprofit organizations I have heard. If I start read, I'm going to read just some of them. And she's volunteering of organization of more than 25,000 plus data scientists, stating with Data with DC, Data Wrangler, Nova Deep Learning, Data Science DC, and the list is going on and on and on. So this is Janet Dobbins. Next to her, and this is, I want to use the word which one of our speakers used today. Sylvia Spangler brought the term of convergence. And this is one very powerful idea in this field. Without convergence of all the players working together, there is no way we can just have the professionals which are needed for the today's society. So I'm just borrowing from her this convergence, although the idea, already existed. So with this idea, our next presenter, panelist is Dr. Kirk Borne, and he was already presented as a keynote speaker this morning, so I'm going to just go very quick about his presentation. He's principal data scientist and executive advisor for Booz Allen Hamilton. Before he had academic career as a professor at George Mason University, and before that, he was a scientist and astronomist at NASA Space Center Data Operation Offices. This is just short excerpt of his bio, which already we listened in more detail. Next to us is variety of the panel, a young data scientist, which is this career changer, which are very broadly found in the data science and analytic professional career. Thinking about the student in the program I'm running, most of 50% are career changer. So here we have a data scientist, career changer, which is Kristin. Kristin Abkemeier. Abkemeier, sorry. She is a data scientist supporting the US Department of State and serving as a first data scientist supporting the Executive Secretariat of the US Department of State. This is just, let's say, the last title. She had done previous work as a physicist, formal education as a physicist. So this is the career changer she made, and we are going to ask her several questions regarding how she transitioned, what she learning, and what advice she has for professionals. So, applauses for Kristin. Next panelist is, again, convergence of variety. We have Jeff Hale, which is experienced entrepreneur, and he is very passionate about improving developer experience in data science and analytics, working in this direction. And Jeff is also organizer in the larger, let's say, community of data scientists and analysts in the DC area, in one of the larger data science meetup in DC area, and serve as a data ambassador, but data king, and you name it. I have again here a list of all this community, which I think is very important. We think about all this data community which broadly contribute to the preparation of the data professional, because it's not just the formal education, it's the preparation with the hands-on experience with everything. So applauses for Jeff. And of course, we must have, let's say, formal professor from the university. We have Professor Harry Foxwell from George Mason University, professor at the Information Science and Technology Department. Dr. Foxwell is working at George Mason University and had taught for several years as an adjunct before that, joining ASINT as a principal system engineer for the Oracle Corporation also. And you name it, it's like a lot professional career transitioning to this position. So we are going to use also his experience, share it with the audience. Applauses for Dr. Foxwell. So we are working together, jointly we are going to run this panel between myself and Dr. Peter Aiken. Peter, can you introduce yourself? I don't have you.
Embellish it, embellish it.
I introduced myself as a professor with a positive cash flow. So that gets me a little bit of license to go out and color outside the lines, which is the badge I picked outside. So.
And that's it?
Sure.
I can have done this with anyway. Anyway, just to start with, we want not just to go question and answer to the panel from my part and from Dr. Peter Aiken part, but also for question for the audience. Just to break the ice between you still are finishing your lunch, I'm going to start with few questions to Janet, for instance. Okay. How the organization in which you work contribute to the preparation of data science?
Okay, great. So the company I work for is called the Institute for Statistics Education at statistics.com, and we call it statistics.com, that's our URL. How do we contribute to data science? So our company, we offer courses in statistics and analytics. They're both online, they could be taken individually or put together as a specialization or certificate program. Our courses are vetted by the American Council on Education, so they can convey college credit so that people can take them to use as college credit, so they're transferable, they're stackable. We partner with universities to either help them with augmenting a data science program, either at an undergraduate or graduate degree level. We can provide courses, we can augment them, we can work together on that way. Then we also provide trainings to companies on a team-wide event as well. So that's how our company contributes to the data science community.
Thank you so much. Someone from the panel want to elaborate in this direction from his position, from his organization, how you think you contribute to the education, except you, we know how you do. I'm just kidding. Anyone else?
I'll just put out a quick something here. So I help organize a couple of meetups, including Data Science DC meetup, and you can really learn a lot at meetups. I hope that if you are a practitioner or you're someone who educates other folks in data science, that you are involved in your local community. If you're not, just go to meetup.com, type in data science, see what's happening, and get out there, and you can get your fingers on the pulse of what's happening and help. If you're an educator, you can help make sure your courses are relevant. And if you're a student, it's a great way to connect with other people, and a lot of folks end up finding jobs through those networks. So being involved in the community is something I highly recommend.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would like to add to that, if you are an educator or involved in data analytics in other ways, reach out to your local communities. We get data from all over the place. We get data from places far away. We also get data from local organizations, and they need help understanding the data that they've collected about their particular communities. And so if you're a practitioner or an educator, you've got to reach out to them and see if you can help them become data literate like we were talking about today.
And let me jump in right there, because one of the reasons Michael Leahy was here yesterday, remember he's the Secretary of Technology for the Maryland, is that he is getting ready to start making a lot of Maryland data available to programs such as this. And he's also willing to bring it to Virginia, so we'll get some of it, the largesse on the other side of that. And I'll just tell you a quick project that we did on one of these pieces. It originally was called the Governor's Data Interns Program. But we collect in Virginia 250 data points on each fatal automobile accident that happens in the state of Virginia. And each fatal automobile accident in the state of Virginia costs taxpayers $1 million. So there's a couple of good incentives for doing that aside from saving lives. And that data was sitting at DMV because nobody had ever gone and analyzed it. Just imagine. Now, what a great class project that turned out to be. And these are the kinds of things that will be being made available to you through Secretary Leahy's largesse in this case. So we've got a lot of really exciting things we're going to be rolling out along those lines.
Yeah, what is it?
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
No.
You're
go.
playing, Chris? Sorry. Yeah, I just want to add from my both from my company perspective and sort of how that ties into my personal perspective, and that is, I did spend 12 years at university and achieved that pinnacle of what was called tenured full professorship. And when I left it a few years ago to join Booz Allen, my wife thought I was crazy. Why would anyone ever leave such a position? But I left to go to this company, Booz Allen Hamilton, because it's doing data science all across the federal government sector and a lot of commercial applications as well. And for me, that's like the kid in the candy store type of opportunity, because it's applying it in predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics and optimization and detection in health and national security and defense and marketing and all kinds of different places. And so it's the data is everywhere. Data applications are everywhere, and across the federal government now, there's just an enormous explosion of interest in AI and machine learning and automation, and using the data as the sort of the source, the fuel to inform and power those algorithms. And so there's so much opportunity there. And so what we do in my company to help make that possible is we try to hire people, to try to hire data scientists, and there's not enough data scientists in the world to hire them. So we actually do a lot of internal training. And so part of our internal training is to take advantage of existing programs that are out there. Okay, so in some secondary way, we're helping build the data community, because we actually hire data science training companies to train our people. Okay, so that helps to build the community, because those training companies, then can be sustained, through the workforce that we're training through them. But another way we do that is through pro bono activities like data hackathons. And the Data Science Bowl, if you're familiar with the Data Science Bowl, which is an online competition which we've run the last 4 years, and one to soon be announced this year. The prize monies have ranged over the years we've done it from a couple $100,000 up to $1 million one year, all going back to the community. Literally tens of thousands of people worldwide participate in these competitions. First year was on ocean health, then we had one on heart health, then on early lung cancer detection. And the fourth one was on classification of cells in a body to detect early warning signs or early signals of rare diseases and cell behaviors. So these sort of pro bono activities also help to build the community, because it engages the worldwide community to develop new algorithms for really hard socially beneficial problems, which again is sort of, someone mentioned the catnip earlier this morning. I mean, the catnip for data scientists especially the young data scientists who might just be wondering, what is this about? Why should I get involved with this? When you start seeing that you can learn a skill that actually can have an impact on the world, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty hard to resist. And so like my company has made a dedication to a lot of pro bono activities in that regard.
And Kirk, just as a leveling point, how much did the winner of the spelling bee get? I think it was
Well,
like $50K, right? So you're actually beating that.
Each winner of the spelling bee got 50. So our highest prize on the Data Science Bowl was $1 million because we were so successful in the first 2 years that a private foundation decided to contribute more to the prize pot.
Right.
So we went from $200,000 prize pool to $1 million prize pool, and the winning team got $500,000, which consisted of 2 Wall Street quants who knew nothing about medical diagnosis, radiological imaging, lung cancer detection, or any of those things, but they knew about deep learning and computer vision and ensemble modeling and all the things you need to learn how to do, and they knew about Kaggle. And one thing about Kaggle is you can actually form teams with people. So 2 people who didn't know one another formed a team and won the $500,000 prize. And so again, building community right there. You work with someone you've never met before, and they never did meet till after the competition was over. And yet delivered a solution which has now actually gone through clinical trial and is on a special track in the FDA. Instead of having the usual 5-year process of a clinical trial, they're actually accelerating the trial to get this algorithm actually into the hospitals and into the clinics to do this early detection of lung cancer. And so working with the FDA, because we as a company have contracts and presence at those agencies, actually accelerating the delivery of the solutions from this community to the world.
Spelling's important, data more so though, right? And by the way, spelling is data, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yep.
talent demand. That's one way of approaching it, is what Kirk's doing. You've got a different approach, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Is it possible to queue up a slide? And now we're out of order. Maybe that's not going to work. So I'll just tell you one thing I did. Whether it's up there or not, you can just imagine what it looks like.
There you go.
Paint a picture.
Oh, yeah, okay. Can you skip
there it
through a
is.
couple slides?
There it is.
Oh, I can see it in front of me. Boom. Yep.
Here is the clip.
Okay, it's cool. It's there too. All right. Boom. Oh, you go back to, oh, yeah.
Power in your hands.
Power. Now can I use it?
Just don't abuse it.
All right, so I was teaching myself some data science things, and I was trying to decide what should I learn next. And I decided, well, I should see what people are asking for right now if they're hiring. So I looked on LinkedIn and Monster and Indeed and Simply Hired and searched for data scientist positions and checked what keywords were popular in those positions. So this is one of the results of that study. And I actually can't see what's directly in front of me. So I will tell you, Python's number 1. I remember that. And then R, and then SQL. So those were 3 that were in demand from lots and lots of employers. So this is just some of the technologies that show up regularly. So if you're an educator or you're someone who's thinking about getting into this field or wondering what you should study next, you don't have to know everything. No one knows everything. But here's a snapshot of what generally folks are looking for. Now, if you're looking for a job at a startup, it might be something different. If you're looking at a defense contractor, it's likely to be skewed a certain way. But this is just one look of the unique actual technologies that people are looking for. I'm going to try to push back and see if it happens. Boom, boom. Oh, okay, yeah. So looking at just broadly skills that are in demand, not huge surprises here, but analyst skills are pretty key. Machine learning is also important. Statistics. Communication is the one you hear over and over from people that maybe doesn't get called out necessarily in job descriptions, but is something that is extremely important, both written and oral. So this is just a couple data points here, and this wasn't difficult research to do by any means, but I will probably update this. So in the future, if you want to find this, go to medium.com/JeffHale, follow me, and it'll show up in your inbox somehow. Maybe not your inbox, but next time you go to Medium. So those are just some of the things that employers are looking for. I'll leave it at that.
So let me add another point, though. We did an analysis of our data science grads, and maybe this is a question for everybody else. But the biggest reason that we found, we talked to the employers, and the biggest reason they didn't hire our grads as opposed to somebody else, because that's what we were doing, is why didn't you hire, right, Kristin, who's perfectly trained to do this, wonderful job? And the answer was because they hadn't done any data munging. Oh, nobody knows what data munging is? So we got a good definition for data munging? It's that 80% of the stuff you're trying to do before you can get to the analysis part.
I just call that a first date with your data.
There you go. First date's a really good way to describe that. So that may be another piece, and I'd be interested if anybody's putting any of that type of thing into their program beyond the capstone courses that we've heard about. And capstone is a great way to do it. Harry, that's one of the things that you've been concentrating on for a number of years in order to do that. Nothing? Okay.
I have something, I guess, kind of related, if I humor you for a second here. So that's a stat of just right now on LinkedIn, how many positions are data analyst, data scientist, data engineer, machine learning engineer. And data science gets a lot of attention, but data engineering there's almost as much demand, and I'd say a lot less supply of folks trained specifically in that. So if you are looking for a new angle potentially, I think that's one way you could go. And machine learning engineer had the highest growth of any job description on LinkedIn from 2012 to 2017. So although it's relatively small, serving those models and productionizing them is something that's going to keep growing. So if you're trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit, I think those are two good places to go.
Not letting me color outside the lines.
I have a quick comment here. I was going to ask Elena directly about this, but I might as well just ask this or kind of mention this in this panel here. As data analysts, we're often just handed a pile of crappy numbers, and we have to extract some information from those numbers by some methodology. And it occurred to me that we should have something to say about how that data is created in the first place. And I was wondering, in various curriculums and other discussions, where we teach about the theory and best practices of data creation. I'm very interested in that part of it, because I know in our curriculum we don't really, focus on, where the data comes from and how it's created in the first place. We're given data, we're asked to extract knowledge from it, and we do a pretty good job at that. But there are people that need help figuring out how to measure things. And I don't really see an awful lot of focus on that yet. And I actually hope to see that more so now that data analysis is becoming more, in people's minds.
There was an interesting climate change article that came out recently where they were able to go back and measure how much has changed in terms of temperatures by measuring the plankton that were picked up from a trawler that was running around the world. And these were measurements that were taken year after year, and they did some inference to it. So understanding where it comes from is huge, and we haven't, I think, done as much a job of that.
Yeah, but even quality, if you're asking people to measure something and then you do an analysis of it, then the quality of how they create and represent the quantities that they're interested in making conclusions about, that the theory behind that is not well taught, I don't think.
We can do better. Kristin, as we've gone through this process, you in particular are our poster child today, right? So you came here as a career changer.
I'm sorry?
You're the career changer that we've held out as the exemplar for everybody else.
Yes.
So what can you tell us that we could do better as a group of professionals that are trying to improve this process to do exactly what you did, which is transform your career?
Well, I think the job search, I got my data science training. Well, first of all, I was working with data when I was a scientist, earning my PhD in physics. So I was a data scientist in a way before it was a phrase. But then, of course, people don't just hire you to be a data scientist because you have a physics PhD. You have to actually generate a portfolio that demonstrates that you can actually do data science. So I completed the data science specialization by Johns Hopkins University that's offered on Coursera. .org, online education, and that was really great because they made it a big point that you opened up a GitHub account and created a portfolio based on all of your projects. So, that making sure that you have projects that you can then communicate about. Writing was also emphasized, and being able to communicate your findings using the publication capabilities on RPubs. And then, something that I had to find out on my own when it came time for me to search for a job last year was I was used to keeping my education section separate from my work experience section. But I was working as a regular software developer, full stack IT developer at the time. So even though I had a summary at the top of my resume that said that I was a data scientist, wanted to get a data science job, it was a little hard because the very next section, my work experience, had full stack developer as the most recent experience. So, and I had my Coursera data science certificate buried on the second page with my degrees. And really, I finally started getting bites when I changed the section of my work experience section to data science and work experience. And then I revamped the listing for my Coursera data science learning experience as sort of saying data science education, and put that at the top of my data science and work experience section. That made the biggest difference. It's like when people go to audition to get a role in a play, right? Often you dress up as the role that you'd like to have, and it makes it easier for the casting director to see you in that role. Well, that's what I was doing with my resume.
And Kirsten, they've got your slides ready. Do you want to show any of that? Because
Sure,
you're
yes.
sharing these with you, and I think it was very generous of you to do that, but they're also a very good example of how
Yeah, sure, why don't you pull that up? Okay, yeah, and go into, okay, I guess I can go to the next one. Yeah, so it's basically, it was just telling my data science story more effectively. So emphasizing, not only the Coursera coursework that I had on the GitHub repository, but making sure that every other work experience I emphasized that I could communicate well, and because that was also another thing that got me hired, was my communication skills. They should really call it a data science and communications role instead of just being a data scientist. So I used to have a before version, but as you can see, I have the data science and work experience section. It's not just work experience, and the last actual job I had is not the top thing. It was the I also included links. Another cool thing was when you create your resume, you can make a PDF and you can put hyperlinks in. And that means you can put all sorts of information, out there on the web, on GitHub, on LinkedIn. You can have your account on Google Drive and put papers there. So this is just me dressing up for my role. And then also on the second page after the education section, again, hyperlinks. You can have your whole portfolio there. Anybody who wants to look you up can find, they could find all of those documents I created as part of my Coursera course. And, I had some additional work experience in which I created reports and edited publications. So I put a portfolio there. Basically, you can have a 2-page resume with links to a limitless portfolio of work.
And all you have to do is get it past the AI and HR, right?
That's right. That's right. So
Your company found you.
that's right. They found me on Indeed.com.
Yeah.
So So yes, and also, I mean, initially I thought I was, would have to kind of get into the data science by the side door since I hadn't just worked as a data scientist. I've been working as a developer. I thought, well, I'll get hired as a developer probably and see if I can leverage my way over to data science. It's like, no, if you want to be a data scientist, apply for the data science jobs. Just go for the gold. People who are hiring full stack developers want people who want to be full stack developers. So yeah, and I guess the last thing is that it's very competitive for jobs these days, and you should treat think of the interviewing process, apply your data science skills to that. Basically, expect the first few interviews you go to won't result in offers, but it's a good way for you to talk to hiring managers and learn what they're looking for. If you don't get the job, you can ask them, well, could you give me some feedback? You don't have anything to lose on, maybe what I should work on. And that helped me to refine my resume and portfolio and what I emphasized when I interviewed. And, just like with reinforcement learning, right? The reinforcement learning algorithms do more of what gets rewarded and less of what doesn't. Well, that's how the job search goes too.
So let me do something kind of rude. I'm going to call us graybeards. That doesn't apply to you, Janet, but yes, I'm looking directly at you. Right? So in that you've been hiring data people and trying to find, and was your search for finding people originally, because you've been in this business for a long time, much more difficult? And is it easier now or more difficult? And what do you look for?
In hiring people?
Mm-hmm.
So the types of people that we're looking to hire are people that can teach data science skills. So, I mean, the search that I've been looking at has been going to meetups. So I started out with Data Science DC and Statistical Programming DC. So I've been involved with them since 2010. And I had been a sponsor since the beginning. Then I was a corporate advisor, and now I'm president of Data Community DC, which is a totally volunteer group, but we have 25,000 data scientists in our area. You put my slides up too.
You guys are great.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I'm just, if you can include in your thought, because we are talking about to hire, but think about that we need to hire also people to teach in university, which is very similar to what you are looking, and what you find as a lack of skill for people to teach in this field, because you are not looking for traditional professor. You are looking for a professor who can teach the subject matter with some software.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So we teach. It doesn't matter like what kind of. So we're looking for people to teach courses that, like, we're early adopters as far as being able to go out and find instructors to teach topics that are new in the field. So we meet with publishers who will tell us about new texts that are coming out, and we'll engage with that author to teach the course, or we're engaged with practitioners that are local here that we hear come and give a speech at one of our meetups, and we're just trying to stay involved in the field. Let's see, I think I put a few slides on here. I mean, just keeping connected, just making yourself visible and networked. I would go on LinkedIn, Data Science Central is one. Katie Nuggets is another that we use. Then the meetups that we use, and then go to conferences. Okay, I already talked a little bit about what we do, but there are just a lot of different data science positions and a lot of different career paths. So I think by staying engaged in the field and going to the meetups, you have an opportunity to just see a lot of different domains and a lot of different data science being done in different industries so that it gives you an idea of the different types of career paths.
So you're talking to some educators, though. So again, feedback, right? What can we do better that will help prepare? And this goes to everybody, and we're going to open it up to you guys in just a second.
What can you do better with,
Education.
I'm sorry? Education. Well, make it relevant. Earlier I mentioned, I think you mentioned as well, you'll be engaged in your communities to help people understand the value of what you do. As an example, I happen to be a bicycle rider, and I got involved with the Washington Area Bike Association, and it turns out they have a massive collection of data about people that have crashed on their bicycles. And so I worked with them to get the data, and gave some of it to my students for a project, and they analyzed the data, gave it back to the Washington Area Bike Association, and they were able to inform people about bike safety issues in the Washington, D.C. area. So making your data analysis education relevant to people's lives, more altruistically make the world a better place through what you do in technology. And I think that's the key. You don't want it to make it too theoretical, too far away. Make it relevant to people's lives, and then you'll be more successful in your education.
So what about you guys? Again, you've seen a couple of days worth of these presentations and things. You've seen the what, right? We're trying to give you the what now kind of thing, but what next? Where should we go next with these things? You have a chance to influence the content of this conference, right? Jerry, of course, has his hand right up, so we'll let him jump in at the first part, but the rest of you guys think about this.
Okay, somebody's been in this field for a lot of years. One of the big questions about education is, you're educating the students now. Would you teach them today? A lot of the details are useless 5 years from now or 10 years from now. How do you teach them so that they can learn by themselves? Because that's what they're going to have to do.
Although, Harry, did I see a slight disagreement down there at the end?
Well, you don't tell them everything, okay? You force them to to go beyond what you present in the classroom. I don't give my students answers to everything. I say, here's a problem, here's some hints, and then I help them go beyond what the presentation was given in the classroom. So, and I teach graduate level students, so I expect them of that. Undergraduate students, sometimes they just expect to open the cranium, pour the knowledge in, and and then that's all. You're right. I mean, there are certain things that are fundamental that aren't going to go away. The basic understanding of how you do an analysis, how you apply reasoning to a problem. Those don't change. Those don't go obsolete. I mean, certain techniques, programming languages, things like that, they go obsolete. But the fundamentals of how you think about the scientific method, think about finding things out, those don't go obsolete.
So also, there's different dimensions for this answer, but we've already been hinted at there, which is teaching people how to learn. And so one of those things, again, is by giving people only so much information and then have them go find the rest of the information, as Harry was just saying. But another way is as I hinted at the end of my talk this morning, which is you put that prize, that goal out in front of people, and then they'll want it. They'll want to go get that. And that happened to me as a child. I mean, I had a small telescope. I saw the stars. I saw Saturn at 9 years old, and I decided I wanted to be an astronomer, right? I decided I wanted to do science and discover about the universe, and nothing was going to deter me from being a scientist, okay? And so it's seeing a goal and having a desire to go after it, okay? So it's inspirational and aspirational. And certainly there's aptitude there, but if you first don't have those aptitudes of curiosity and creativity, problem-solving skills, communication, collaboration, all these different things, that's where it's going to fall short. So help develop the aptitudes, because you always can teach skills. And so for me, it's It's more focused on aptitudes. You give people interesting problems that exercises those cells that that Harry was just talking about. That I have to go find the answer myself. Excuse me. There used to be this joke when I was at George Mason about what's the difference between a graduate student class and an undergraduate class. In a graduate student class, the first day of class, you go in and say, hello, my name is Professor Borne, and then you describe the class. You go into an undergraduate class and you say, hello, my name is Professor Borne, and the hand goes up and the student says, will that be on the final? So the ability to get students beyond this sort of like, I'm here to just regurgitate factoids to you, that I'm in control of discovery here, teach me the ways I can be a discoverer. That's how I look at it.
So while I'm waiting for some of the rest of you to volunteer, I'm going to pick on Alan for just a minute.
Chris?
Oh, sorry.
Kristin.
Oh, I don't know. I was just going to make a little semi-flippant remark about how I was a good student, so I didn't have a problem with being able to teach myself to learn. I had more of a problem with motivation. Once I decided I want to go the data science direction, it's like, do I want to sacrifice my evenings and weekends to learn this again? But if you're motivated enough and you want to change your career direction, you'll do what you need to do.
So I'm picking on a gentleman here who's had a unique experience. And I've gotten to know a little bit just over the past couple days. But tell a little how you got into this business and why you're here.
All right, so I originally took the big data course at Concordia, Illinois, and my dad over there, Neil Whitehead, he taught the course, and so he gave me the basics of big data, and as we went along through the course, he's like, all right, now that you have the skills, you have to go apply these skills, find a way to kind of improve society in one way or another, or you can team up with another company or something. So I decided, my original idea was to try to get data from the U.S. Embassy about Agent Orange, but it didn't pan out. But I decided to went to the Chicago Data Portal, and that's why I did my report on criminal activities in Chicago. Yeah, so it was a discovery, basically. I just kept learning along the way.
In Hanoi, he went to the Hanoi government and said, I'd like to investigate some of the things that occurred a long time ago and what the continuing effects are. What a brilliant piece of work. I'm pretty sure anybody in here would be offering you entry into their PhD program at this point in time in terms of that. And it doesn't hurt to have two parents as teachers in the process, right? So, thanks, Neil. Alan. Janet, social good keeps coming up in these areas.
I have a question to everyone, since we are talking about since we are talking about the skill we have to teach, so they are relevant 5 years from now and 10 years. What we do with programming and technology then? Because these are the transitional skills.
Well, for me, it goes back to the computational thinking, computational literacy conversation. So Jeanette Wing wrote this paper several years ago when she left, I think it was University of Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon, one of those, to go to the NSF, and she wrote this paper on computational thinking, and it just really just sort of turned the NSF computer science directorate upside down because they were focused on teaching the skills and not the literacy. So I sort of caught that bug. I really felt that's why I gave a talk on data literacy this morning and not so much on data science. If you get people literate, just like language, right? We learn language, we learn to write, we learn to read, we learn the alphabet when we're young. I did not read data science books or math books in kindergarten 40, 50 years ago, right? But I can read those books today and I can communicate to you about those topics today because I learned a literacy, reading words and putting them together into sentences and communicating through sentences. So if you can give the foundation and the building blocks, the literacies, the ways of thinking, the ways of addressing a problem, the analysis, critical thinking, then the rest of it is just a skill you learn. Years ago, Fortran was the thing, right? I learned Fortran, then I got to NASA, and then I had to learn this, and then I had to learn that. And so well, I knew the concepts of programming, so I could learn new languages because I already had learned the concepts around languages like for example, parallelism and conditional statements and data structures. I mean, all these kind of things, I already knew those. So they look different in different languages, but I already knew the concepts. And so I think that getting to that conceptual foundational level allows then a lifelong of learning, because now you can just build any structure, just like you can build, War and Peace or a data science book from the 26 letters of the English language. Just 26 bits of data are all you need to construct every novel, reference book, science book, math book ever written in the English language.
If you go to music, it's 7 notes, right?
I just wondered why every fatal car wreck would cost $1 million to Virginia. You know what goes into that?
A lot of investigation to try and figure out what's going on. You've got police time, you've got all sorts of cleanup, and so average $1 million. They're very comfortable with that number. But it's not a known number, right? So I was asking social good. I know that's not much of a question, right?
Yeah, that's not a question.
How does that roll into yours as we're waiting for the next question? Yeah. Do we have another one? No, not yet. See? Or say repeat the question. You're not being articulate enough, Peter. Come on. Social good. You guys have been doing statistics for years.
Is this a word association?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean,
Have you been able to work that part into statistics? Statistics is one of those subjects where people go, oh man, I got to take a statistic. I'm going to take it in the summer so I can get over with in 3 weeks, right? Yes?
I mean, I haven't participated in any of the social good types of, the social good that I'm doing is with the community as a whole.
Right.
I'm a huge volunteer as far as putting together the data community DC. I think when you say social good, I think of the meetup groups that are centered around social good, around solving problems within the area. But I feel like with the data community DC, we do a lot of really good education programs as far as the meetups have people like Kristin and Kirk and Jeff, Jeff comes and he helps organize groups. We put together programs so that practitioners can talk about the work that they're doing. We've got companies that come and try to recruit at not recruit as in recruit, but they come and meet. We try to create an atmosphere that the people that are looking to hire can meet up with people that are in the field. I mean, Jeff is a good example of that when we had a panel put together with people from Capital One and from Monster, and it was funny because Jeff shows his expertise by writing the Medium posts, and everyone was like, wow, Jeff, if you were looking for a job, I would find you a job. That was true.
Yeah, absolutely. I will just throw in quickly that if you're interested personally in getting involved in, there's a group in DC called DataKind DC,
Yeah.
also Data for Good DC, both trying to work with, in DataKind's case, work with nonprofits to help them unlock their data and do good stuff with it. So check out meetup groups on those. They're meeting kind of about monthly and doing good stuff. So you can definitely get involved.
There's a call for volunteers right now for the DataKind group. If you're interested in it, I'd be happy to get you in touch with those folks too.
Hi, my name is Andrea Calloway. I'm a lecturer in the Management and Information Systems Department in the College of Business at Bowie State University. Bowie State is Maryland's first HBCU. We have other HBCUs in the DMV area, but Bowie State is the first in Maryland. Representing an HBCU, my question is, and knowing our population of students, both grad and undergrad, they're always looking for internships. We're always looking for corporate partners and community partners to come in and talk with our students, or come in and do workshops or guest lecture into our classrooms. We have PricewaterhouseCoopers is coming in and doing Well, they did a Tableau workshop with our students during the semester, and now they're coming in next week to do one with us, with the faculty. So those types of opportunities we're always looking for, and we're always open to interact with, companies that that all of you represent, your path that you talked about. We have an MIS club, we have a National Society of Black Engineers chapter, very large chapter on our campus. We're very active, we go to conventions. So part one of my question is, how can we work with you guys to bring some of what you're talking about onto our campus? And then the other question is, what organizations might you recommend that our students can participate in as student chapters, of professional organizations?
I mean, there are definitely data science in Maryland meetup groups. I could definitely get you in touch with some of those. Definitely have you come to DC, and we could source out, be happy to talk to you as far as we work towards having a community-driven in the DMV area focus. So we're putting together a community event in October. And we've got a new section that we're working with the educators too, so with the university. So yeah, I would welcome a conversation with you.
I highly recommend getting into the student membership of the IEEE or ACM. They have local chapters. They have a great deal of outreach to communities like the underrepresented communities in IT, encouraging STEM education for minorities, women, and so on. I know we have those at Mason. I'm sure there's interest there at other universities. I would certainly check with the representatives of ACM and IEEE to get guest speakers and other forms of support.
Well, thanks for coming. One of my happy memories, I remember my days in NASA working with the folks at the Satellite Operations Center there on your campus. And actually did a project with some of your computer science faculty. And it's been quite a few years, but where I work is right down BW Parkway from you at the national agency down there. And we have a large number of people who would love an opportunity to come talk with your students and your faculty, whatever suits you. And we have people from, sort of management consulting people, all the way through hardcore data scientists, data engineers. So wherever you are in that sort of interest level of technical or less technical or more technical, we can find opportunities for students to hear about things, to have workshops about things. So I'll share my card with you afterwards.
I'll just add that the data science community in DC I found to be extremely open and welcoming, and if you want someone to speak at something you are putting on, come talk to any of us up here. There are people out there who will speak, for sure, or just want to help getting involved in some other way. There are people to help.
Or have a venue to come speak to. Because we were talking to, if you are getting ready for a talk and you want to come and present your paper or your talk, we have lightning talks all the time, so that would be a perfect place to come and try it out.
Friendly audience, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Kristin said I really liked about getting that feedback. So how many people are familiar with what backpropagation is in a neural network? Okay, so think of your career path and your resume as an example of backpropagation, right? Where you put something out there and you get feedback from it and you adjust to improve it, right? And so anytime you give a talk or you submit a resume or you have a job interview, collect that feedback so you can iterate and improve on it. And so these data meetups are perfect for that because again, it's your local friends in your audience. You can prepare something for maybe a national conference or something locally in a friendly environment where you get good feedback from a lot of great leaders in the DC area.
So I know we've got an international audience, but there's a new bill that Congress has passed in the middle of the government shutdown across the winter called the 2018 Open Government Data Act. And it's mandating evidence-based policymaking. And I'm pretty sure nobody who debated that bill had any idea what they were talking about. And I don't mean that badly. It's just, I think it was presented as, there's a bunch of nerds in the government that want to do this stuff. Were you guys okay with it? And the Senate said 100%, no problem, and only 15 people in the House voted against it. You don't get that kind of unanimity, I think, if it's understood. But that also, I think, represents a tremendous opportunity for all of us collectively to help out with that process. More question?
Yes.
Yes.
There we go, yes.
You're actually touching on what I was about to ask on in regard to ethical standards and ethical application for this data community. And as it grows over time, it seems like we're all discussing the ethical application of data, and government is kind of behind in terms of implementing legislation. I was curious as far as your foresight in terms of timeline. When do you see legislation being passed as far as some type of GDPR type of legislation, and I know it might kind of slow down or constrain to the openness that we have in the data community here in this country, but then what is your foresight in regard to when you see implementation of actual legislation?
Well, someone made the comment yesterday, they brought up the California Act already. That's an equivalent to GDPR. And the comment, I can't remember who made it yesterday, but the point was a lot of this stuff is governed by state law. Okay, so that's that separation of power, so to speak. So we got 50 states who all are going to have a different take on this, and so it's going to be kind of complicated how we sort of make this work across an interstate economy that we have. That individual states may have different ways that they implement this and different enforcements, and so it's going to be complicated. So what I see ahead is just more madness ahead, right?
So you'd like,
very little convergence there. A lot of convergence in technologies, but not in our understanding.
Well, come on, our wonderful 50 experiments in democracy, right?
No, but it's because
It's a
of
problem,
that. It's
yeah.
right. What they say, like the worst form of government is democracy, but it's the best that's out there.
you'd like the government to be proactive, but unfortunately they're more reactive. When something bad happens, then they start passing laws. So you're starting to see that now with some of the, might call abuses or accidents in the data analytics world that were talked about earlier in the presentation. So hopefully you can get some proactivity in making some ethical guidelines for use of this data. But I think unfortunately it's going to be more reactive. When something bad happens to somebody, then they'll start thinking about passing appropriate laws for those.
And on that note, we actually have to pull the close. So I want to thank the panelists for sharing their experiences up here with us. Thank all of you guys for questions and things like that. Rudy, shoot back over.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you very much for all enlightening talk. And yes, the hour just passed like nothing. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.